Hello and welcome to the next episode of Eldritch Girl. And today I'm interviewing Penelope Holdfast, the medium and owner of ESP, which is Entities Living Sympathetically with People. This is a new venture which has just come to Pagham-on-Sea. So it's lovely to have Penelope with us. Do you prefer Penelope or Penny? Sorry.
Penelope.
Penelope, yes, sorry. So would you like to introduce yourself, Penelope, and tell everyone about your business and the reasons why you've moved to Pagham-on-Sea? Because you've just come down, haven't you? It's you're very relatively new to the area. So yeah, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, sure. So obviously I'm Penelope. I'm a 34-year-old medium. And my business, ESP, as you've mentioned, I set it up and it tracks entities. It registers whether on the corporeal scale. It's a little bit like kind of radiation on the Geiger scale or Richter scale for earthquakes. But it's sort of based on spectres' energy levels. And generally my aim is to help humans or other entities, non-humans affected by hauntings, to live in harmony with spectres. I mean, that's not always possible, but I was hoping that we could kind of talk about that and it'd help me to raise awareness of my business locally, because I think it's just so important to teach humans and non-humans to live with their hauntings.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so recently moved into the White Horse B&B, which I think most of our listeners will know, our Pagham-based listeners. What brings you to Pagham-on-Sea, and is that where your business is going to be based?
Yeah, so the business is going to be based from the B&B. I've set up my office there, and it's also where I live as well, because I think it's quite important to kind of have that connection between the two, and particularly as the B&B is so haunted, and we'll obviously be hearing from one of our main spectres in a few moments. But it's really interesting in terms of my journey to Pagham-on-Sea. So I know that I grew up in Pagham-on-Sea.
Okay.
But I don't remember being here. But I've dreamt about it from the age of 10 years old. Right. So it's quite a long journey, if we can kind of get into that. So as I said, I don't remember living here. But my parents were very transient up until I was about 10. They were hippies and they were interested in going to places to feed off what they called psychic energy.
Right.
And it was usually, the supernatural. And I don't just mean things that are ghostly or monstrous or anything, but anything to do with like unexplained phenomena, although they don't have the same abilities that I have developed over time. So we lived in various places. We lived in Glastonbury, York, Knockin Island, to name a few. And after they'd stay there for a bit and then they'd kind of move on, after they kind of got what they needed out of the place. And because they used to do rituals with crystals and things like that. And apparently we lived in Pagham-on-Sea the longest. We were there for 2 years, but again, it's like a weird block in my mind. I can't remember ever being there. But I remember moving the day that we left from Pagham-on-Sea. And we moved and we ended up settling in Milton Keynes, where my parents lived to this very day, in the very same house. And it's strange because my parents were such complete hippies, but when we moved, my dad cut off his hair, became an insurance salesman. Mum went to work in a bank, and they just totally settled down and became regular mum and dad like I'd always craved. But when I was in Milton Keynes, when I first started moving there, I said I was 10, I started having these dreams. And all of my dreams were involving a space in the wall. And they started becoming more detailed over time, these dreams, to the point that over 4 years ago, I was having these dreams constantly every night. I'd wake up from my dreams. I still feel like I was in that place. It was just calling to me. It was getting louder and louder. And also, from about the age of 16, I started seeing ghosts and predicting events before they happened. But again, that kind of developed over time too. But it's really interesting. So my dreams were getting more vivid and vivid. And I knew in my bones that it had something to do with Pagham-on-Sea. And my parents tried to stop me from coming here in the first place. And then I decided I needed to come here. And I had such an uncanny feeling. I felt like I knew all of the streets and where to go at the back of my hand. But I couldn't work out where this thing I was dreaming about, this thing in the wall was. So I paid quite a bit of money to some of the underground urchins, and there's some really rough folk. And they took me to an abandoned shell of a property. And I won't name the street for privacy reasons, but obviously when clients will know where my property is. And before I entered, I just knew that in my heart this was the place. And that's how I came to this B&B, and everything was leading up to that moment. And I went upstairs, and the entity in the house, who I call the face, he manifested to me, and I felt complete. And that's kind of why I'm here.
Wow, that's such an interesting story. Do you know why your parents didn't want you to come back, or
They just won't discuss it.
oh,
And I don't know whether it's they can't or they won't. They just completely shut down whenever I try and talk to them about it. And they didn't think I was going to move here. They thought it was just going to be like a bit of a day trip. But I went here and I just knew I needed to move here. So I spoke to the council. I was able to buy the old B&B off, a real knockdown rate, because it was in such a state of disrepair.
Yeah. I mean, I think is it an offshore consortium that owns it, or that owned it for you? They were just kind of letting it fall down because it was easier than doing anything with it. Because the front of it's grade 2, isn't it? Which is difficult.
Pardon?
The front of it is grade 2 listed, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
This is absolutely a wreck inside.
Yeah, it's just such a shame. But as you say, I mean, it's got such a reputation for being haunted. I say reputation, I mean, it is. It's because it is. But yeah, so how many spectres do you think are in the B&B?
So, I mean, there are so many. It's such a big well of entities. There is a dominant entity called the face. And within that, there's several others that kind of swirl around. But I think the face is like a big net that traps other spectres. So I think if something even were to walk past the house, they'd be sucked in. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the kind of, like the eye of a needle of the storm sort of thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I've never heard of anything like that before. That's really interesting. Okay. And are you able to contact the face? Like, can we, because I know that you said we would do that on the show.
Yeah, so the face is actually right here. They've kind of manifested in the section of the wall now.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. I can see it.
Face, how are you doing today?
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. So is it okay?
Manifesting through the wall here.
Yes, you are. Is it okay to ask questions, or is it?
Oh, I am very good at asking questions.
Well,
not so good at answering them.
This is typical. The face will get a bit more chatty as we move on, hopefully.
Okay. Is this just because it's like manifesting for the first time in a while, or is this just how it happens?
This is just how it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It sounds quite fragmented as well.
I think, do you hear different echoes in there? Do you hear kind of, looks like different voices at all?
Yeah, kind of. Sorry, yeah, I was wondering if it was because it's hard to tell, because obviously we're doing this via video chat, so it's really hard for me to tell if it's a lag my end. But yeah, or if it's like an echo on the, but yeah, I think so.
So obviously I moved into the house, and the face was here, and I felt such a connection with the face.
That's really unusual. Like, it's I've never heard of an entity that manifests in that particular way, but has those sorts of properties or powers. And that, I mean, I can hear him like really, really clearly as well.
Paige, do you want to talk about some of your powers?
I can manifest in a wall. I can also manifest in a floor.
Wow, okay.
What about your properties? Like, kind of, how would you describe what you're like?
I think I would describe myself primarily, and some may disagree with this, as glutinous.
I see. The face is really being so humble and underselling himself right now. Like he's really underselling his powers. I mean, what you can't see is that when he sort of transfigures and moves around, it creates sort of a massive, I don't know what you call it. It's almost like a shift in reality and a shift in elements around it. Everything sort of changes and warps. And I think, as I said to you earlier, when I take readings on my energy device, I mean, these are the most unusual and highest and most fascinating readings I'd ever encountered. It's so powerful. I mean, almost, God, I think Faith and the Ghost, it's almost like a god, like this power.
I think I have caused some of the mortar to dissolve.
It's just so humble.
Wow, okay. Yeah. It's so interesting that you've got this kind of corporeality that's affecting not just other entities in the house, but also affecting the physical building itself. That's so do you think that's like an ectoplasmic reaction, or
I don't know. I mean the ectoplasm, as I've said before, glutinous is a good word for it because the consistency is just so solid, and I'm not used to this. For example, so as I said to you before, I've been a medium for years. I've picked up on ghosts, but previously, ghosts were kind of like a faint whisper that I'd hear, a mist out the corner of my eye. Whereas in this situation, I mean, it's like thick goo, it's solid stuff. And that sounds probably a bit disgusting, but it's just so, it's just remarkable. I've never met an entity like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's also very three-dimensional. Like I can kind of see the way that it's manifesting. It's definitely not like a pattern on a wall. It's actually manifested face in a wall.
Right. And the way it can slide through things as well. It's almost a bit snake-like on its movements as well. How would you describe the way you move?
I would say that the way I move is elegant, attractive, and not dissimilar to a slime mold.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I'd put those adjectives as slime mold. That sounds. Yeah, that's okay. That's really interesting. I don't know, like, would you be able to move now, like Forrest? I mean, I appreciate this is a podcast. The listeners will have to rely on description, but I'd really like, would you be able to do that just so I can kind of see it?
Oh, I think I probably could.
Can you see it?
Oh, yeah. I know, it is like slime mold.
Yeah, but it's so strange. It's not really altering the brick or anything. Nothing's come off the walls. Like, can you see the way it's going over that painting and it's not moving?
Oh, yes. Oh, wow, that's weird. Okay, because that's obviously something there. Like, obviously it's a physical thing, but it's not affecting the canvas. And like, I would expect, is that watercolor? Or
yeah, it is. It's watercolor, actually. I got it from a local artist.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, but it's no. I would expect like you'd expect it to be warped.
Yeah,
and it's not.
Yeah, or you'd expect maybe some of the plaster or something, or the paint to start chipping, but it
doesn't.
That's the thing. It's the it's like it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, but at the same time, you said that Face said that you also dissolve things, like you have actually impacted the house physically. Is that just, do we think is that over, like, what's the word, cumulative over time?
Oh, I don't dissolve anything that doesn't need dissolving. I'm very respectful of this property.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, it's an intentional act, isn't it, when you do something like that?
Oh, I have a fine creative mind. Yes, I exert considerable influence over the structure I inhabit.
So when I moved in and I was obviously trying to do things up, I think you weren't very happy at the beginning, so there was a lot of that dissolving. But I think you were kind of acting up and kicking up against me then.
Oh, I think it was all in good jest. We had a good time.
We did.
Yeah. Okay. What did you sort of find wallpaper that you put up kind of coming off the wall or something like that? Was that? or was it?
Yeah, or whole sections. And at one point, the sort of adjoining wall between the dining room and the kitchen, that all the bricks were somehow knocked out. But I don't know how it's possible. It was almost like you'd imagine something like a big truck had kind of reversed and all the bricks had come out. But it was something
wow. Like that kind of force or the impression of, oh, wow, okay.
And then that cost me quite a bit of money, Face, didn't it, to have to put that all back together and get the builders in.
Well, it's obviously one has to spend money on an older building. Estate agents traditionally would say around 2% of market value per year.
Oh, and also a big shout out to our builders, Matthew Raven. He's had to come over quite a lot. He's a specialist kind of, paranormal sort of builder. So he knows how to work around things like this too. I always recommend him to my clients in case they have any issues.
Because I mean, again, I can't imagine a lot of people would have issues quite like this, but I can see why that would be a really difficult thing to kind of work around or work with. And in terms of your business as well, I mean, I imagine this is what the kind of thing that you're helping your clients navigate. I mean, not necessarily a face in a wall, but like poltergeist activity or that sort of thing, that kind of haunted house issues.
Yeah, poltergeist energy, demonic entities, I've had all sorts really. So I think the biggest thing that I'm finding is it's about teaching humans and non-humans to live with hauntings. And that's kind of my catchphrase. You've probably heard me say this quite a lot during the course of this podcast, but you've got to remember really that a lot of these spectres, dark energies, whatever they are, they've lived in a place for many years, and you come in and you're the usurper. You're coming to their place. And then, so you've got to kind of take back control almost. So it's about establishing authority and boundaries and lines of communication, like I did with the face, that it depends on how corporeal they are. So with my business, so what I might suggest to clients is we might undertake a seance, or if they're, again, not very corporeal, we might kind of create a system of something like Knox, like a Morse code. Because I'm finding that ghosts, they're often very frustrated and lonely. So you think they're malevolent and terrifying and they want you out, but actually they're trying to communicate with you, but they don't know how, or it's been so many years since they've communicated with anybody, they've forgotten the means to do that. And they don't know who they are or what their origins were. And it's not that kind of, it's not that kind of exorcist, the power of Christ compels you stuff. I don't come in and do that. I'm just recognising you don't have to be afraid of them and that you can peacefully and happily coexist with them. And that's the kind of my end goal. I think there's only been one occasion I've seen where the entity was fully malevolent. And it was, demonic, and it was very ancient. But we contained it, and we came to an agreement with both parties to rehouse it, and it's much happier where it is now, actually. I helped it move.
That's nice.
It is, yeah, and it's in a space now, and it can really fully do what it wants, and it's not near churches, it's near farmland, it has its own body of water. Like, it's great. I visit about once a month, and we have a chat and talk about the old ways and the old gods, and it's brilliant. But luckily, Faith and I mean, I think we happily coexist now, don't we? There's just mentioned those healing issues at the start, but I've tried to apply a lot of the lessons with Face to my business. Would you say that you're quite happy now?
We have a very agreeable existence.
Yeah, I think we do. Especially during lockdown as well. I've been here all the time. It's probably a bit harder for you.
Oh, everything is fine. I positively enjoy the contact of people.
So I assume that I mean, obviously this was a B&B at one point, but so was the face present when it was a B&B?
I imagine I've been here a very long time. I would have been a fine feature for any kind of hospitality establishment.
Very true. Yes. Do you actually remember anything about who you were, or whether you? How far back do you remember?
Well, we all have a history. Oh, I've seen some things in my time.
Yes.
I mean, remember a lot of things.
Can you give any examples, Faith, of things that you remember?
I remember that time a cat came in.
Okay.
That was some time ago.
And was that when you were human or when you were what you are now, respectfully?
I think you shouted at it.
So that's more recent then.
I think you were doing some paint.
Oh God! Actually, no, that happened. That's about 3 months ago. That's when Dr. Socks, the neighbour's cat, came in.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, no, they're really cute. But you got to make sure that cat's really attracted to this place. I think it knows things, but
cats do know things.
They do, but I think you'll get a lot of answers like that with the face. I don't think he does remember where he's from or anything like that.
So it seems really difficult to communicate a little bit with the face. I'm getting that it's as you say, it's a little bit fragmented. How is your relationship progressing? How do you find that?
It's really difficult because the face, talks in riddles. Often when you try and have a conversation with the face, it just slithers off somewhere or disappears or doesn't manifest for a few days. He goes off on tangents. He doesn't give a straight answer. So, communication has been a real challenge, but I really do enjoy living with him, and I enjoy our friendship, our relationship, whatever it is, and I might be interested in more one day between us. But I just don't think he's there yet. But it's interesting to me, really, because I've been looking up setting a support group for people in Pagham-on-Sea, for people who have this very issue that they might have friendships or family members, or they might have kind of romantic or sexual feelings in terms of, for hauntings, between hauntings and people or hauntings and non-humans. And at the moment, my idea for the support group is kind of focused on kind of what I'm experiencing, entities in houses and things that kind of might not be appropriate by human standards. They might be an inanimate object, or they might not be fully corporeal. But if that support group is successful, I might widen it to anyone who has an unsatisfactory or unfulfilling relationship with something that's a supernatural being. And I can't really discuss who's going to attend, but a few people's relationships involve things like a spinning wheel, tarot cards, a haunted bicycle. That's who they're relationships with, or they might be in love with, and it's really hard for them to accept their realities. And I could widen it a bit more and have like a agony aunt service for humans and creatures, like a dial-in radio show, or a bit like a Frasier Crane for the deceased.
Wow, I love that. That sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah, so there's things like that. But going back to your question about the face, our relationship, it does have its challenges. He's very obtuse, but also we have a quite satisfying friendship in other ways. In lockdown, he's been my sole companion, and we do quite a lot together now, don't we? We watch TV shows together. He'll come and kind of manifest just above my shoulder, and we'll watch things. Like, we've got through Sweet Home and Kingdom and Game of Thrones and all sorts of stuff. And sometimes I put the TV on and I pick something I think he might want to watch, like Baki, which is an anime. I'll stick that on. Sometimes he'll sit there for hours and just watch that, and then the TV will turn itself off, or I'll hear that Netflix has stopped working and I'll have to come back in and fix it. But it's quite a lot that we do now, don't you think? Face.
I'm often in this house, and so are you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yes. Yeah, that seems very fulfilling. Yeah. There's I know that there's these sort of, are you linked up with the undead support group that meets in the Mermaid?
I've tried. They're a bit territorial, aren't they?
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're a lot more inclusive than I'm not going to name other groups, but they're one of the more inclusive groups, but they are very I guess it's because it's a group for the undead, which.
So I was really interested in kind of setting up a bit of a partnership between the two groups, because
yeah,
my group is for the people that loves or cares about the people in that cohort over there. But they're just, a lot of them just aren't interested. There are a few that kind of wanted to reach out and things like that, but a lot of them, they just want to keep that as their exclusive group and kind of leave the rest of us on the outside.
It is difficult. I think opening dialogue is very difficult with undead discourse the way it is.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm an outsider. I haven't been here for very long either, so there's a bit of a distrust there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is... it's very difficult when there's no pre-existing relationship.
Yeah.
I think you do have to kind of, but I just thought I'd mention it because I mean it's run by, so Gary, the landlord of the Mermaid, is obviously human and alive. So he's generally quite he's very community orientated. So it might be worth it might be worth just keeping keeping like communication open with him just in case there's anything.
I didn't speak to Gary. I turned up to the support group itself, and everyone just kind of swiveled and turned around to look at me. And I mean, the haunted monkey was sort of banging his
oh god, yeah, Fred.
Yeah, and everyone was kind of absolutely horrified.
Yeah. Fred's all right. Like, he just kind of appears and then sort of then goes somewhere else. And Fred is a toy monkey, for anyone who isn't sure who Fred is. But Fred is kind of like a I guess if you go shopping in a particular area of town, you'll know who Fred is because Fred appears in the windows of different shops. And his favorite trick is trying to get you to buy him. He's very mischievous like that. And then you take him home, and then all sorts of things happen. And he's funny, but he's like this little he's basically like a plushie for people who don't know what he is, like the big eyes and the little prehensile tail.
Yeah, because it's just interesting. I've not had that level of I don't know, it wasn't the usual kind of malevolence or distrust you have from supernatural entities. It felt different. It felt more, as I said, more territorial, more this is our patch. So I will have a chat with that landlord. Thanks for
Gary. Do. He's so his uncle used to run it. And then he came, so he's kind of new here as well because he moved down from Chichester.
Okay.
So I think he actually lived coincidentally in Pagham near Chichester, and then it moved to Pagham-on-Sea. So like just moved from Pagham to Pagham. But Pagham obviously near Chichester is far less haunted than than our one.
It's fun, isn't it?
I don't know. I think it's a lovely place to go on holiday. But if you want to have a break from the hauntings, that could be
a place I could go for my holiday. Because honestly, since I've moved here, I think I said to you earlier, the way the ghosts are so 3D. But it's not just that. I can hear a lot of people's thoughts as well. And God, if you go past like a porter or a wend and you know exactly what they are.
Oh God.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Fun times.
Yeah. So I might need a little bit of a holiday soon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are other mediums as well. There's a couple that like, do you know Tina?
I do know Tina. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really nice. Like
we've gone for a few beers and that. She's really cool.
Yeah, she is nice. She she's also like one of the people who isn't going. She's. I don't think she's very territorial in terms of like.
No, she's really lovely.
Yeah, she's really lovely. But so she does seances as well, and things like that. But that's not her primary business. Whereas for you, obviously, this is like ESP is your your main business, isn't it? So that's slightly different.
Yeah, exactly. I think the main thing for me with Tina was kind of having that chat when I moved to town, because it was, I'm not trying to encourage business from you. You are an amazing medium. You do what you do, but mine's a bit more like it's like a counselling service. It's more like a more involved service. So Tina could be the starting point, but I'm kind of like that kind of that aftercare to help you live and deal with your situation.
Yeah, and I think people will. I think it's That's, I was going to say, that's really good, because like if people get referrals from Tina, like that's or if you are, if people are referred to you from Tina, I mean, I think that's that would work really well, because I think, as I say, like it's difficult when you move into a new place to start somewhere when there's not that pre-existing trust.
Particularly during lockdown as well, having to do a lot of my stuff, on video calls or
that must be really difficult when you can't enter a property.
No, but my power is so strong though that I can still do it via a TV screen. I can still do it over the phone.
Really?
But it's not as good as it would be in person. It's probably about 50%.
Wow. I mean, that's still astounding, like that it would be. I guess that's it. Is it stronger since you entered the B&B?
Much stronger. I think that was the thing. I don't know whether it's Pagham-on-Sea or the B&B itself. It's hard to tell, but I do think that when I'm working from home, sometimes this can be my strongest place. If people come to visit me, I don't know. It's still something I'm kind of getting to discover. But it's interesting because, as I said, I have these memory blocks too. So I'm not kind of quite sure either of our origins in terms of this B&B, really. Why we're so interested in it and why you're here.
Well, obviously you contacted the History Society.
Yes.
Some time ago. I do apologise that it took a while for us to get back to you, but that's mainly because we're not. Well, a lot of the members are not as active as they were. So I have done some digging for you for as much as I can over lockdown. Obviously, things are easing up, so it's a lot easier for me to get access to things now. Obviously, due to GDPR, there isn't a lot of there's no the B&B kind of address books and things like that. They're obviously all gone. It was very dilapidated, so a lot of the kind of admin and all that kind of stuff was shipped off to various solicitors. But what was salvaged was the visitors books, where you can write little notes and say how you enjoyed your stay. You can do that anonymously. So those turned up in somebody's attic, who was a member of the local council. Which is about the time that it went up for sale the first time. And so they go back to about the 1960s.
Right.
And not really sure what to do with them. So I think they just thought that maybe this History Society could do something with them, or they should really be in the archives. But obviously, due to lockdown and things like that, I mean, the councillor who had them died sort of over lockdown, and sort of going through the stuff took some time, and nobody really knew what to do with it. So I have managed to have a little look. And it's interesting because, I mean, your surname's it's quite a unique surname, Holdfast.
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah. And so around about the time you say that your parents came here for 2 years. So so certainly at some point I found the their comments in the visitors book in one of the ones for the 1990s, which I think would for that B&B.
Oh Oh my God. What did they say? What did it say?
I mean, well, I can email it across to you, but it's literally just like thanks for the lovely stay. Something about the energies being really strong in that particular area. It also interestingly mentions Pharisee stones. Do you know what they are?
No, I've not heard of those before.
Okay, so they're quite local. It's a local term. So Pharisee is the Sussex dialect term for fairy. And so they're basically like fairy stones. It's like a dialect word. So in our case, in Pagham-on-Sea, I say our case because I don't live there myself anymore, but you know, I still come back.
House prices and all that, right?
I know. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how to describe them really. So there's lots of urban legends about them. And one of the origin stories for Pharisee stones is the meteorite that struck an ironworks in the Roman period. So the Romano-British period, if you like, destroyed this forge. And that's also one of the origin stories for werewolves in the area, which is meant to be like a martyr's curse, stuff like that. And there's like a holy well. So Harry Bishop wrote a book on, I think it was Harry Bishop who wrote the book on that, and sort of he transcribed and translated a load of the medieval chronicle accounts, because there used to be an abbey, which is where the old manor house is now.
So that's not far from here.
It's not. It's like a 45-minute walk out of town, or like it's like a 10-minute. It's up Redditch Lane.
Yeah, I know exactly what that is. Yeah.
So that site was the site of the old, not the abbey, sorry, it was a monastery. And I think it was Benedictine. And that's kind of like a 12th century foundation. So there was anyway, so Pharisee stones first kind of get mentioned there, but not as Pharisee stones, but as these stones that have power. And if you wash them in the holy well, then they're meant to, give you good energy, good vibe, whatever, healing properties. And if you don't, what's that?
I to interrupt, but that's the kind of thing my parents used to do. They used to get their crystals and they wash them in things like, the Chalice Well in Glastonbury. I remember that's the kind of thing they used to do.
Okay. Yeah. That. The difference of the Pharisee stones is that if you don't wash them in the holy well, then you can use them to enact curses instead of healing.
Oh,
so the kind of, that's implied that the usual state of it, of that stone, is kind of malevolent, basically, and you have to do something to or at least mischievous, or and it's what's interesting to me about the White Horse B&B is that if you look out the window now where you are, that because you're in one of the back rooms, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so if you look out that window now, have a look in the garden. Can you? And those the rocks that look, they usually have like a little patch of mushrooms growing around them.
Yeah, I can see them.
Yeah,
well, I thought they were edibles.
Yeah. So those are meant to be Pharisee stones. Like, obviously it can't have come from like the same meteorite. Like the meteorite was not that big. But it's that's part of the local kind of stories, I guess, about the White Horse B&B, and one of the reasons it's meant to be so haunted and like as a like a central place for hauntings, is because it's ringed about with these stones.
Oh my God, I just thought they were just sort of common garden mushrooms and common garden stones, and I would never have expected that in a million years.
Yeah. So that's really, so what's really interesting to me is that, I guess, you say your parents didn't have powers, but you're a very powerful
Yeah,
medium, and
yeah,
that's very rare to have. You know, it's, and especially to have somebody who can see those sorts of manifestations, and like, I don't know, I just think it's a really interesting. I struggle with the word coincidence.
hmm.
I just find this really interesting that your parents were doing these kinds of rituals with crystals, didn't have any powers themselves, but were, I guess, quite intuitive, or
Yeah. They're always kind of drawn to that
yeah,
kind of. I hate to say it, but the kind of new age hippie-ish sort of lifestyle.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah. Um, it's
yeah,
yeah. I find that really interesting because you chose a place, or they chose a place rather, where it's kind of like this magnified place of power,
hmm.
and then you end up with powers. And you would have been quite young as a child then.
Yeah. So I was about, well, I
10.
was about 8 to 10 when I lived here, but it was, so 10 was the point. So when we moved to Milton Keynes, that's the point I started having my powers.
So
I remember that.
whatever, okay, so whatever kind of, and you have no memory of Pagham-on-Sea. See,
No.
that would imply to me, from speaking to various people who have moved away or have had strange things happen to them as a result of living in the town, that something happened to you while you were here.
Hmm.
And I'm just wondering what the connection is, um, and if that's something potentially that we should be looking into.
Should we ask the face whether he might know anything about, what do you call them, the Pharisee stones?
Yeah.
Face, are you still here?
Well, I could leave the house anytime I wanted.
Okay.
You come back in. Have you come back? Are you able to speak to us again?
Well, I could leave the house anytime I wanted. I don't know
Ah.
about moons.
You don't know about any stones. Do you know the ones that we're talking about? The ones that are kind of outside. If you look through the window over there.
Oh yes, I know. I know all about those stones.
What can
What?
you tell us about them?
Well, they're made of stone, and they're all around there.
Yeah. Okay. We're not right.
I don't know
Okay.
if it's helpful.
But again, that's for, yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Mm.
the thing. So I don't know. So I'm completely staggered that I've come back to this place that I clearly lived in as a child.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm.
I mean, I'll send you I took photos on my phone of it because I couldn't take the actual book away, but I'll send you those. And it, yeah, I think it was like, it sounded like you lived here not for the whole 2 years you were here, but like for a couple of months maybe.
But then the thing that I'm really curious about is why. So this place was obviously a functioning B&B when we lived here. So
Yeah.
why did it become so ruined and abandoned? Like what happened?
Well, I
That's what I
mean,
want to find out about.
yes. So that's the one of the last entries in the book. So it closed not long after your parents left. I would say just like a couple of months after it closed. But it looks like the B&B manager just disappeared around that time.
What?
So I don't know whether that's connected, but yeah. So I had a little look at that.
Yeah, that's really worrying. You said someone disappeared.
Yeah. So the owner of the B&B disappeared. Like,
Do you have any details? What his name or a
um,
picture? What he looked like or anything like that?
yeah, I can send you the picture because like that's, so if you go into the library, downstairs in the library they've got the microfilm, like the microfiche machines. So you can have a look at the Gazette backdated issues, and let me just see, because I did have yeah, okay, so this is from my notes that I've got. So yeah, so the manager was called Norris Wedden. So that's Norris with two R's. Wedden, Weddon. So he's current. Obviously, he went missing in the mid-90s, so he's kind of, presumed dead, like legally dead now, which is why, because he was the owner, which is they had to wait 7 years before they could pronounce him legally dead.
Right. Oh god, I feel really really sick. I don't know why. Face, do you remember a Norris Wedden?
Oh, the name does sound familiar. I'm sure I must have met Norris Wedden at some point.
I'm gonna try something.
Okay.
I'm gonna touch the face. Do you remember Norris Wedden? Entities. Do you remember Norris Wedden? Do you remember Norris Wedden?
Norris Wedden was the proprietor.
Where is he now?
Norris Wedden is probably still here. Norris Wedden might be very close indeed.
Oh, okay.
Where? Tell me where he is.
Norris Wedden might be under the floorboards.
What?
I mean, it's plausible. A lot of people have been found under floorboards. It's not an unusual thing.
No, that in fairness, that's true.
I think we should stop rolling.
Yeah, do you want to pause?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was something. That's the end of this episode, I guess. I should note that any kind of background noise that got picked up on the recording was not audible at the time of recording. So if you do hear things like footsteps walking around, doors, etc., we were not aware of, well, I personally was not aware of that when we were doing the video call, but apparently that's quite normal. So if you did hear anything in the background, worry not. Apparently that's supposed to happen. Yeah. Since this has been recorded, I should say that the B&B was thoroughly searched, but no human remains were found under the floorboards. Although there was they had problems with the sniffer dogs. There was a sniffer dog that kind of went in and didn't want to be in there. So I guess it's still kind of inconclusive, and Norris Wedden's whereabouts are still unknown. Yeah, so that's all we've got time for, really. Yeah. Never had an interview like that before. I'm going to go back and do some more research, and we'll see what happens. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. Bye now.